Yeah, this is kind of like a couple that keeps having a version of the same fight over and over again. It really goes back to the speaker's fight at the beginning of this Congress.
Welcome to the Debrief, where we talk with the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the headlines they're covering and where the story's going next. I'm Sarah Bedford, and I'm here with magazine editor David Mark. And David, this past week there was a big showdown between members of the House Freedom Caucus and GOP leadership, specifically House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Lay out the land for us. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, this is kind of like a couple that keeps having a version of the same fight over and over again. It really goes back to the speaker's fight at the beginning of this Congress when it took Kevin McCarthy, Republican of California, 15 ballots to win the speakership due to holdouts by the most conservative members. They came to what seemed like an agreement over the next few months, but then recently we had this debt ceiling and spending standoff and eventual resolution with President Joe Biden. Both sides had to give up something, both sides were made to look like victors. The most conservative members were not at all happy with the deal that was struck. So what they've been doing recently is been withholding their procedural votes. Not to get too into the weeds, but in House parlance, it's called the rule that you need to advance to consideration of legislation. Usually it's just a formality. It's almost like an extra point kick in football. You just don't even think twice about it. But it's such a narrow majority that about a dozen to 14 of these members said, no, we're not going to go along with this. And it's basically brought the House to a standstill, and it has House Republican leaders practically begging for support from these most conservative members.
What is their end goal here? I mean, the deal is done. Are they hoping to get some more concessions? I mean, what would a concession even look like? Well,
that's the real question about it. They haven't exactly stated what they want, other than they want to vent about their anger, and probably some other members aren't thrilled with the deal. Of course, you could say the same on the Democratic side. About half the Democrats voted for it, maybe even a majority. They probably said, well, it's a compromise. The problem, of course, is it's divided government. There's a Democratic president, Joe Biden, there's a Democratic Senate, there's a Republican House, and House conservatives don't like that and don't want to deal with that. So until they come up with some direct demands, it's hard to see where this goes. They can't really keep the House just not working forever. They could try, but I mean, at a certain point, there are workarounds, like going to Democrats, which is not something Kevin McCarthy would want to do. But it's just a really strange tactic because there's no real end game there, as you suggest.
The motion to vacate is something that McCarthy didn't really want to have included in the deal that got him the Speaker's gavel, but it ended up being in there. We sort of heard that thrown around by some Freedom Caucus members who were angry about the debt ceiling deal. Has it come up again? Is it a possibility?
It's certainly a possibility. A motion to vacate, of course, it's essentially a vote of no confidence on the Speaker. It's to have a whole new election. Any Republican or Democrat, for that matter, could pull that trigger at any time under the existing House rules, but you would still need to replace McCarthy with somebody. There's nobody who's going to get 218 votes right now, so it would really be pointless. They could probably knock McCarthy out of that position, but then somebody else would just be in the same role. If you could even find somebody who would want that position, why would anybody go through it at that point? So it's just really strange that there are not some goal, some legislative goal. It just seems like more of a way to vent right now.
Well, David, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
You can get more writing from David and the rest of the political team at washingtonexaminer.com.